Hey everybody, welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and with me tonight is Cody from the Shoot Fast podcast, and we're here to talk about USPSA and multi-gunners and how they can get along. And of course, you always want to mute the feed in the background. That was my bad, everyone. Cody, welcome to the show.
What's up, Dave? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Dude, it's great to have you on. We've been talking for about 20 minutes before the broadcast here, and sounds like we've got a ton in common. And I'm looking forward to having a constructive chat tonight, and hopefully the audience can join in with us. We're broadcasting this live on YouTube, so if you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment and everything. Cody and I will get to your questions and your comments and your input and feedback in due time. But we're gonna have a good time here.
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So, Cody, for folks that don't know you, why don't you just give us like a little bit of a brief background on you, and also want to include a synopsis on the Shoot Fast podcast.
Yeah. So I am a USPSA shooter primarily. I actually started off in 2014. The first match I ever shot was a three-gun match. At the time, the three-gun nation stuff was kind of at its peak. And I saw all that stuff. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. I want to be a part of that. And so I started shooting three-gun. And naturally, when you start three-gun, the pistol is generally the hardest part, especially when you first start. So I started shooting USPSA matches, and just kind of through that realized I liked USPSA better. And now I would self-identify as just a purely USPSA shooter. I don't do anything else. And that applies to my entire life, not even just shooting wise. The USPSA is the only thing I do. And then also, so about a year and a half ago, January of 2018, it's 2019 now. Yep, that math works out. January 2018, I started a podcast called the Shoot Fast Podcast with my dear friend and co-host Joel Park. And we just talk about USPSA. We talk about getting better at USPSA. And we have a lot of fun with it, and the response has been great. We've got a lot of people who listen, and people who enjoy the show and send us questions. And so the thing that actually kind of teed this off was through the Shoot Fast Podcast Facebook page. I reposted some stuff about the candidate for the USPSA elections. I keep feeling like I'm saying the wrong letters for that. The USPSA presidential elections, and you chimed in with talking about, hey, these I'm trying to, how do I say that?
PG-13 version. I did a drive-by on your Facebook page for sure.
Yeah, you're making some accusations about how multi-gunners are treated at multi-gun nationals by the USPSA ROs, and I honestly have no idea what the problem is. Like I've never. The only three-gun matches I've shot were USPSA multi-gun matches at my local club. Again, that was 3-4 years ago. So I don't know what the normal culture in three-gun is versus USPSA three-gun. And your suggestion was, hey, we should do a podcast and talk about it. And I think that sounds like a great idea, because I legitimately don't know other than things that I have kind of read and heard since then. So I have kind of a base idea of what the issues are, but I don't know what they all are, so this will be informative for both of us.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's great that you have like a three-gun background as well, because, we have a lot of common ground, right? And talking to you before the podcast here, I think we have a lot in common as well. Like, I came into the shooting sports in three-gun. Then I started doing USPSA matches along with that, local club matches. I shot one escalated level. I haven't got quite to the rule book part where it explains the levels. USPSA match, I don't know if it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't even know which way that goes. But
what was the title of the match?
It was the Mile High Showdown.
Okay, then it was probably a level 2.
Okay.
So level 3. What's that?
What's club match? Is that level 1?
Yeah, club match is level 1. Like a section match is level 2, and then an area match or nationals is level 3.
Oh, okay. Copy.
Generally speaking,
that's probably level 2 then. I gotta say, like when I was cruising through the rule book, I like that they actually have that in there, because a a lot of times, in three gun, since we're like kind of disorganized, we don't have like one real sanctioning body. We have three. I don't know. People will say, "Oh yeah, come to this. It's a major match." And you show up, it's like 110 shooters, and it's all in bays, and it's really short course kind of stuff. So you don't really know what to expect. But when USPSA says it's the level 10 international demolition championship, you know what to expect, right? I made the level 10 up.
I've answered the question. We fielded the question on our show before. But people asking, why are we not three gunners? Why don't we ever shoot three gun? And that's, I have to say, from my perspective as a USPSA shooter, I view the sanctioning of USPSA and having it be one cohesive thing where I know no matter what match I'm going to anywhere in the country, I know what the rule book is going to be. I know what equipment is legal. I know what's a DQ, which I'm sure we'll get into that. I know all that stuff. I know all that stuff ahead of time. And so I know 100% what to expect, and I don't have to go and ask, get special approval from the match director. Is this allowed in this match? Or I don't know how it actually works with three gun, but I assume there's some of that going on.
Sure, and I think you also might be a little mistaken on some of those too. So we can talk about those. But to finish off with my background, since I think since I started the show, like 2015, I've shot one USPSA handgun level 1 match, and then a couple level 1 PCC matches. Right, and so most of my background in the last, comprehensible past year is with three gun shooting nationally under several sanctioning bodies, with the exception of USPSA, and I'll explain why, and shooting PCC at a couple club matches. So when you put out like, hey, what platform things are important to you as a USPSA member? I'm a USPSA member. I did a drive-by, and I apologize. It was very rude. I said, stop being a-holes to multi-gun and PCC shooters. And then I was really surprised at the feedback that I got on your page, where nobody knew what I was talking about. And
I don't know either.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because like the people I run with, that's like all we talk about is like the hate and anger against PCC shooters and the hate and anger against multi-gun shooters at matches. Since then, several of your listeners have reached out to me, and we have a lot of listeners in common. Like Adam Davino is watching right now, and he says he listens to both of our podcasts every week. That's awesome. But several of your listeners reached out via direct message on Facebook and like, hey, what's going on? And so I explained it, and turns out like outside of the small multi-gun circle that I roll in, it's not really well known. And so I'm excited to chat with you here, and we can actually like get this out. So yeah.
I was able to figure that out right away, that okay, he's speaking in a way where he assumes we know what he's talking about, and I have no idea what you were talking. I had no idea what you were talking about. So
yeah, that's cool. And I had like lengthy conversations with, like I said, several of your listeners, and come to find out through several people in several different states, like the level 1 matches in Colorado apparently are well known for not being the friendliest to outsiders of the local cohesive club, or to PCC and multi-gunners, which I guess with my context being that, and that's like all I've seen. Maybe I just assume that that's how USPSA rolls for other places. So since then, I'll have Cody, that I've made plans to go to some local USPSA matches here in the Austin, Texas area and surrounding areas. So I'm going to go get a taste of shooting some pistol matches with an actual pistol and not a PCC.
Wow.
And, yeah, I know. I'm scared too. And maybe we'll prove me wrong. So I'll eat those words.
Are you just going to shoot limited minor, or what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, and that was what my question is like. So my production rig would be a Glock 17, and like nowadays that's probably not the right thing to shoot. So I asked like, well, if I shot limited minor, how much fun of me would everyone make? And he's like, nah, don't worry about it. I'll shoot with you. which is
so when you say nowadays, that wouldn't be the right thing to shoot. What are you referring to?
So, well, it used to be back before you and I started that, like the Glock 34 was the dominant force in USPSA production, and now it's like 10 folios, CZs, Saki shadows, I'm guessing. So like the Glock is not necessarily like the go-to, the dominant force if you want the gamer gun.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, and so I know this isn't what we're here to talk about, but I would just say I would not operate under that assumption. So I think it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing where all the top people shoot metal-framed guns in production because they like shooting metal-framed guns and kind of because that's what everybody else, all the other top people do it. So all the top people do it. It's a self-fulfilling thing. Yeah. Where I don't think there's really any reason why you couldn't be competitive with the Glock 34. I think one of the people actually going back and forth with you on the Facebook page was Tyler Turner, who shoots a Glock 34, Gen 5 Glock 34, actually, at a very, very high level in production. And he's beaten up on all kinds of people who shoot, $2,000 metal frame guns. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Awesome.
Limited Mire is fine if you're just going to have fun. But if you want to be taking home any trophies, you got to shoot limited major.
Yeah, I know, but 40 hurts my wrists. They're real weak. So.
Oh, it hurts my wrists too. I mean, I can barely, write a sentence anymore because of all the 40 caliber major loads that I'm shooting all the time.
Yeah, I haven't shot anything but 9mm since like 2015. So yeah, which is kind of funny because like I have a 1911 too that I haven't used in a long time, but we're getting way off the topic now. But yeah, I'll be shooting limited minor. But I think you're right on the steel frame gun, and that's we see that a lot in 3-gun as well. Like if you don't have a 2011 shooting 9mm, then why even bother showing up? But if you go to like the club matches, which you call I guess level 1 matches, the dominant force is all the Glocks out there, and it's can't beat it, I guess.
Still nothing wrong with a Glock. They're great guns. Now M&P, maybe I'll try and talk you out of that, but a Glock, go for it. Yeah,
all Glock all the time. So
that's right.
All right. Well, so we have some background now. We know why we're here. So what I did is I reached out to the 3-Gun Show community. We have a forum on 3-Gun on Facebook called 3-Gun Talk. And I asked, like, hey, people, look, I'm looking for some constructive feedback here. Let's talk about complaints with USPSA for multi-gun and 3-gunners, and maybe if you have some tips on improving them. Shocker, Cody, nobody had any tips on improving it, but they did have a lot of complaints. Can you believe that?
I can believe that. I have a podcast too, so I get lots of those things. I get lots of complaints and not a lot of solutions. So
yeah, and that's pretty much just how life goes. So I think going over these, if I were to have to like make like an aggregate to like sum it up, and I'll give you the executive summary first. What I see is like basically a cultural thing, right? And where most 3-gun matches are like, hey, welcome to our match. Let us show you around. This is our beautiful shooting area. These are the amazing things we're going to do. How can we make your match experience more enjoyable? That's most 3-gun matches. There are a subset of 3-gun matches that are like, hey, it's big boy rules. F you if you don't like it, you can leave. We're keeping your match fee, and you do anything dumb, we're going to DQ you. That's a subset too, right? So I think I'd love to go through some of these examples, but giving you just an overview, I think what it comes down to is like there's so many rules in USPSA that there is always an opportunity. You're always in danger of being DQ'd for things that we as a 3-gun community see as like minor things that are not unsafe, and stuff that in like a normal everyday match wouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'm sure we'll get into some of the stuff more specifically as we go on here, but so what you said about being a welcoming community and everybody, wanting to bring you in. I think the same is 100% true for USPSA. I think people I think USPSA is very strict in the rules, and I agree with that. For me personally, that's something that I actually really like about it. I know what to expect, and I think that the constantly living in fear of a DQ, that's definitely a true thing. I mean, national champions still get DQ'd at matches. And so no matter how deep you are into the sport, I mean, you can always get DQ'd. That's always part of it. But the safety rules are the safety rules. And I think the stuff that you're talking about, for example, I'm sure we'll get into like bagging and bagging guns, that sort of thing. Once you've done it for a long time, once you're familiar with the sport, it's not really a risk anymore of you getting DQ'd for that. So for me personally, at a USPSA match, I'm not going to bag my pistol or pull my pistol out of the holster anywhere where I'm not allowed to, because I 100% know what the rules are, and I am not going to violate those rules, because I know if I violate those rules, I'm going to get DQ'd. And so I think that by having those kind of strict rules that are always the same all the time, everybody, sure, there's some growing pains when you first start out, but eventually everybody learns what those rules are, and you're not going to have issues with those things. You're going to have more issues with the stuff that happens, between the buzzer and unload and show clear. That's where people usually get DQ'd for once they're more experienced.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm with you on the things between buzzer and unload show clear. I think most of the complaints that I receive from multi-gunners are things that happen when you're not shooting, you're not under the clock or anything. And as far as like taking your pistol out of a holster, I totally understand that. So we got a comment from Adam Davino. He says there are way too many ways to get DQ'd off the clock at USPSA matches. Adam, please clarify if you have personal experience. I'd like to hear it. So Cody, to answer your question, I guess to build upon what you're saying about the rule set, is the rule set, and once you get more used to it, you'll get more used to it. I think you're absolutely right. But USPSA has one multi-gun match a year, and it's nationals. And the argument to that is like, hey, well, you don't like it, don't shoot it. It's a free market economy. I totally understand, which is also, I didn't shoot it. But USPSA is the gatekeeper to all IPSC matches, including shotgun and rifle world shoot. Traditionally, USPSA has sent inadequate teams, inadequate shooters to shotgun and rifle world shoot because it's like a buddy program with USPSA or NROI. I said it. It's a fact. Look it up. So that three gunners want to change, and they're trying to play within the rules. However, it does seem like the executive staff at USPSA multi-gun nationals specifically are trying to keep people from enjoying themselves.
Well, Dave, the first response that immediately comes to mind is USPSA rules. I mean, USPSA is just the American branch of IPSC,
right?
And so the safety rules in USPSA are all rooted in the same things that the IPSC safety rules are rooted in. I was going to say they're rooted in the IPSC rules, but really the IPSC rules started in the US and then went everywhere else. Anyway, we won't get into that. But so any kind of things that you would get DQ'd for at multi-gun nationals, you would get DQ'd for that same thing at the rifle world shoot or the shotgun world shoot. And so if you're not able to follow those rules in the US, what's the point of flying across an ocean just to get DQ'd, over in Europe somewhere for doing whatever thing it was that got you DQ'd in the US?
Yeah. And I see what you're saying there, but I think there's some subtle differences in how am I trying to say this? I think there's subtle differences that maybe if USPSA is trying to still be USPSA, right? Not IPSC,
yep.
Right? Like in IPSC competition, you can't even touch your gun if you're on deck in the hole. Doesn't matter, right? Like there's a specific time where you can touch your gun because of.
You're talking about for the long gun matches for IPSC?
Correct. Yeah. Because of the way laws are, and I'm speaking specifically of, I guess Italy was France was the most recent one. So like you can't even touch your firearm on the staging table or something, right? Or on the preload table. So in USPSA, you can go preload your shotgun, you can change your choke or whatever. Some stages at USPSA multi-gun nationals, changing your choke had to be done under the guide of an RO. Some stages they were like, "Nah, go ahead, you got it." So that's like part of the gotcha sort of thing. And it's like, okay, well, if this RO told me that I don't need to do it, but then I go to the next stage and I change out my mod choke for my IC, now I'm in danger of getting DQ'd because this guy has a stick up his butt for people having a good time. I think that's what it comes down to. And I think it's 100% the staff, because the major complaint that I see that I've seen over like the last half dozen years that I've been paying attention to multi-gun nationals, even when it was in Vegas, it was the same thing, is that ROs are keeping a kill list, and they laugh and talk with each other about how many shooters they DQ, which seems ridiculous.
So, oh man, so many things there.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a little bit in the pre-show. I don't think I've mentioned yet. So I am a certified RO for USPSA. I only RO at the local level. I don't ever RO at major matches. I guess I have RO at our section match a couple times, long time ago. And I've only ever RO'd at pistol matches. So I do have a little bit of that perspective as well. But there are those people, and again, I only have notes from my perspective traveling around shooting USPSA matches, where I see the same people wearing the NROI shirts at a bunch of different matches, and they are people who I don't think actually shoot. So I do think there are certain people who are usually people in that category, people who don't shoot, people who just go around and RO matches, who maybe have a little bit of that mindset of maybe. I wouldn't go so far as to accuse them of having a hit list that they're going after, but I think there is some people who maybe, go home and carve a notch in their timer every single time they get another DQ, or add a tattoo on their back, and they got tally marks all down their back for how many people they've DQ. I don't know, but sometimes certain attitudes that I've seen, yes, I agree there are some of those people, and I think that's more of maybe a personality issue with those people, or maybe a training issue, or maybe the fact that sort of personality is allowed is a problem. But I don't necessarily think that I don't think there's anything coming from USPSA saying, hey, this is how we're going to act and that this is appropriate.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. It seems ubiquitous, and then it's all across the country. So
and then before we move on, you also said you're talking about the changing shotgun chokes and how on one bay you'd be allowed to do it, and the next bay you're getting DQ'd for it. That's what you said, right? That you're saying that's a thing that happened at multi-gun nationals? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Correct. Boy.
Okay.
You're professional. You wanted to hear me say it, not just nod.
Well, you said it, and then I talked over you, and I didn't hear it come through my headphones.
You wanted me to get on the record. Yes, that is what I said, sir.
Okay. So now I forgot where I was going with it. Oh, so that is a major problem. Obviously, so at the local level, again, I RO. This is why I brought this up. So I take it upon myself, and I think it's important to enforce the rules as they are written. And so I don't let things slide as an RO. I'm starting at the local level, but it's, if you broke the rules and you need to get DQ'd for it, because for the very reason of when you travel to a major match, you're going to get DQ'd for this. If it's a rule that you broke, then you need to get DQ'd for it, because you're going to get DQ'd for it somewhere else if you don't learn now. The problem is when you're DQing somebody for a rule that should have been enforced on the last bay, and in the same match you have two different people enforcing in different ways. You're not going to hear any arguments from me that's okay. It's not.
Yeah. Well, and just so on the choke, let me take one of the questions from the group real quick. We got Ben Berry, the famous Ben Berry.
That's right, from Short Course Podcast.
Yeah, Short Course Podcast.
We talk all the time.
Tactical Podcast. Ben is one of the people that reached out to me. Dave, WTF. Also, really good at memes. Internationally known for his memes. So
And his T-shirts.
Yeah, exactly. So he asked, what happened at Multi-Gun Nationals, for those who didn't know. And we'll get in. There's a lot of things. It wasn't just like one specific thing. We'll get into them as we go along here. One of them was the choke thing. And I just want to read you a text that I got right before we started. I was texting to clarify this because one of the complaints I had was about changing chokes, and that it was okay on one bay and it wasn't okay on another. I couldn't find that in the rule book about changing chokes, and which I'm as shocked as you are. There's a rule for everything. So my question was to a friend of mine who's an open shooter, when can you change chokes? It doesn't say in the rule book. And he said, anytime in the safety area or at the preload table. Every time I did it at the preload table, I would make sure and ask before I did just to be sure. And I said, okay, thank you. What about tack shooters? And he said, I said, what about tack shooters? Does the tube need to be empty to do so? And he says, I overheard ROs saying both yes and no, so who knows? I'm assuming the ones that let you do it with a loaded tube were actual 3-gunners, which match director Shannon Smith did a pretty good job of having like a ton of local 3-gunners be ROs at the match. But unfortunately, like all the CROs were either the people that you were discussing before, the people who don't shoot, or pistol shooters. And so on that topic, unless you have any input on that specific thing.
No, let's do it. Whatever you got to say. I'm excited. You got me fired up about it.
Yeah, so on that topic, reading through the USPSA multi-gun rulebook, which I hate reading rulebooks. I've read so many because I've gone to so many different matches. I'm just sick and tired of reading them. It looks like it was written by someone who does not have a functioning knowledge of long guns. And I mean, it looks like you're handling ordnance, and I come from aerospace where we did handle ordnance, and like looking at the way that a lot of this is written, it's like, geez, they think like these are the most dangerous things on earth, when from my perspective, if someone's got a long gun, they're much easier to handle as an RO than someone with a pistol.
Yeah. Well, you're throwing a lot of science terms at me. I don't understand them, so I'm going to take them as disrespect. No.
These explosives.
Okay. Anyway, so no, I think you're correct that the USPSA multi-gun, and I know it's certainly true of the PCC rules, that basically we're just taking the pistol rules and we're kind of retrofitting them for long guns. And so honestly, PCC is something that I have, that I see at matches a lot, because people shoot it in handgun matches. It's an official division for USPSA pistol matches, and I've heard so many different interpretations on what you're allowed to do with the PCC that I don't even know, and so I don't know. Like I guess it's my understanding now that you can unbag on a berm maybe, but then and bring it flagged to the line. But I know when it first came out that at our club at least, you had to bring it to the line bagged, you had to unbag it on the line. And so I legitimately, I don't know what the rules are for PCC, because like you're saying, we are taking the handgun rules and trying to apply them to long guns. So it's definitely a problem.
Yeah, let me tell you a fun little story about me and PCC. So I shot a club match in Colorado. It was a USPSA match. And so I'd heard all those things too about the bagging and unbagging and stuff. But I had this new PCC. I wanted to shoot it. It was the last time I was going to be in Colorado for a while shooting with my buddies. I was like, oh, we'll go. And a couple of the guys, one of the guys shot PCC as well. So I just basically like stuck on his wing and did what he did. So I go grab my bag to take it to the line. And he's like, no, you don't need to do that anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I have my chamber flag in there because I heard about that. I hate chamber flags because I've had extractors damage from chamber flags. So I really, really, really hate them. But so I take my PCC over, shoot the stage. 2 stages later, same thing, unbagging in a berm on a table. They made these nice wooden tables for us there. I pick my PCC up, I look through it, dot's still on, go up, I guess this is vertical up, according to the rule book. I go vertical up, and I'm standing there, and this guy comes up to me shouting about how I could be DQ'd. And I was like, for what? He's like, what you just did. I'm like, taking my gun out of the bag. And he didn't articulate it, but I found out later he meant looking through the dot, which I don't understand how that is so much more unsafe than just picking it up and putting it vertical. But he said, like, you can't handle your gun, put it down. And I'm like, I'm up now and they're pasting targets. Like, how do I get over there from over here without my gun? That was like the legitimate question. I'm like, I'm just sitting here holding. I'm like, you tell me what to do, buddy. Like, but I need to get over there. How do I do it? And then finally he went away. So, like that is.
So you never got an answer for what you were doing wrong from him?
No, because by the time like he was like trying to formulate like, okay, well, how can I get this guy DQ'd? Because I'm sure it would hurt his high overall standings, shooting limb 10 or whatever the hell he was shooting. The guy that was running the timer, the RO, said, "Get over here." And so then I went over there. So, and then it was done. And that was the last day of the day, so I never figured it out. And I figured I was never going to be back to that club, so why even bother?
Yeah. So again, like I said, I RO, and I actually, so amongst ROs, I feel like I know the rules better than most because I use them for myself mostly because I'm a competitor first. And so,
that's a great thing about USPSA is like knowing the rules, then you can give yourself a really good advantage in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and I did hear about that. And I'm sure maybe we will or won't. But I heard about the thing at multi-gun nationals where you could ground a gun and then pick it up in the same spot if you didn't walk too far away from where you were shooting. So put the gun down on the ground. Okay, we'll get into that. So I heard about that. But no, most of the time, knowing the rules doesn't give you that big of an advantage. But no, I know the rules well, so that I don't get DQ'd, and again, so that I know what I'm doing when I RO people. But again, I don't know what the PCC rules are. I don't feel like I feel like adding long guns to pistol matches is a really big thing, especially when we're talking about safety rules and gun handling and what's allowed and what's not. And I don't feel like there has been very much information disseminated through any kind of official channels to figure out how does that, like, how do we add that? What are the rules? What are we supposed to do? Because I don't know, and I pay a lot more attention than most people do, and I don't know what the rules are for what you're allowed to do with the PCC. I talk to somebody else and try and figure it out because I don't know.
Yeah. So one thought on that, and then we have two great comments here in the chat. This chat is awesome, by the way.
How do I look at that? I cannot see it.
So you can push
the chat button.
You can open up the link that you posted on your Facebook page, and then just make sure it's muted so you don't get feedback on it. But okay. So I will tell you, like, as far as like information not being flown down from the I guess USPSA directors or whatever the hell you want to call them, board. I see that in the fact that to make my PCC clear, I have to drop my mag, eject the last round, let the bullet go forward, I pull the trigger, which makes sense because those are all USPSA commands for my pistol. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then I have to pull the bolt back, cock in the hammer, which I just let the hammer fall, and then I have to shove a piece of plastic in a hot barrel. Hopefully later I don't induce a mechanical malfunction damaging the gun or myself. And then now I can either put it in the bag or take it to the safety table, depending on which range I'm at. And so, like, all that seems to be like a weird hokey pokey that I don't think adds like a ton of value.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't have anything to add to that, but I can see. I think you're making a valid point. I did get slightly distracted because I went to go pull up the chat, and Kevin Hartman, no relation, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
He reposted the airing of grievances from Seinfeld for Festivus, saying, "I got a lot of problems with you people," in reference to this episode. So I don't know. I thought that was funny.
That's perfect, and apropos, it works out well. So let's see. What Goes Boom says PCC can be bagged at safety area within 2 yards of berm. Can't sweep anyone, which makes total sense. And then he says you can't mess with the sight or optic, unbag only with PCC or rifle. Okay, good to know, because touching your optic can definitely cause an unsafe condition. Ben Barry says some USPSA guys do the same thing, even to pistol shooters. Quote, you could be DQ'd for that, end quote, usually means, quote, I don't like what you're doing, but it's not strictly against the rules. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I had somebody say that to me at nationals for USPSA limited nationals this last year. About I was running right to left on a stage. I'm a right-handed shooter, so I'm swinging my right. I'm running right to left, so I have my right hand extended out, and I'm swinging my right arm, and I'm running as fast as I can because it's a pretty decent run along the back of a bay. And afterwards, the RO told me, well, you're real close to breaking the 180. I'm like, okay, where? Well, when you're run side to side. And unfortunately, that was one of the few stages I didn't get video of, so I didn't get to see it. But I do know how I run when I do that, and I've seen a lot of videos of myself doing it, and I've never gotten close to the 180. So my only explanation I can come up with in my head is what you're saying, which is he didn't like the way it looked. There was something about it that was unusual to him, and so to him he's like, oh, you almost broke the 180, but I didn't break the 180 because he didn't call it, and he just for whatever reason didn't like what I was doing and wanted to say something about it.
And I've experienced that exact same thing again. And my question was, did I break the 180? And the answer was no. And it's like, have a good day.
Yeah.
I'm going to go reset now. I have nothing more. We have no more business here. I'm going to a different stage.
Yeah.
But that was one of the more useful things that Mike Foley said on Freilic's podcast was like, hey, all ROs, listen to me now. If I didn't break the 180, there's no reason to have that conversation about almost breaking the 180.
I listened to that as well, and I enjoyed what he had to say about that. I agreed with the Prez, Mike Foley.
Yeah. Quick note: no swearing in the comments, otherwise they get flagged. So no swearing in the comments. Also,
that was your audience, not mine. We don't ever swear on the Shoot Fast podcast, and our audience doesn't swear either.
Right. That's why they were so offended when I called them a-holes. So
exactly, that's people were up in arms.
Yeah, and I was wrong. So one of the other things that happened in nationals is an RO after the match took off his belt and his pistol and was DQ'd. He was from the conversation he and I had. He was at someone's trailer. So not in a safe area, not on a bay, no shooting happening, but he was DQ'd. So couple thoughts on this. So I tried to look up the rule that he was DQ'd under, and I found it, and it specifically says that you can't take your holster off, which I thought was interesting, and like I get that. However, it goes further to say that if you have a pistol in a holster, it is considered in a safe condition, and specifically says not on your body. So if I go to a safe area, I take my pistol out, I lay it on the safe area table, I take my holster off, and then I put my pistol in that holster, I'm now okay. But if I take it off in a berm or at like a jogging cart or whatever, that is not okay. Which, I mean, that's something that we do all the time in 3-gun when I don't know, for people that don't know, if we've got some USPSA listeners thinking like, what's he talking about? We have these quick detach things in the back of our holster that allow us to take it off for when we're shooting a shotgun only or rifle only or shotgun rifle stage where we don't need our pistol. That way it doesn't fall out. Further, if I'm walking around resetting and I bend over and my pistol falls out, I go get the RO and I'm like, hey, I messed up. And then he picks it up, makes sure it's clear, and hands it back to me, and it's fine. But if I take it off inside a holster, which is considered a safety container, now I'm DQ'd. So, I mean, it's specifically in the rules that way. So, like, it's hard to argue. But that's one of those oddities that we as multi-gunners look like, well, that's just looking for a reason to DQ a bunch of people.
So the first part of that, where you were talking about putting, taking the gun off in the holster, or just taking your whole belt off if the gun's still in the holster and throw it in the trunk of your car, whatever. That's one of those things that I categorize under what I was talking about earlier. One of those things that you just know not to do, and so you don't ever do it, and so I don't ever even think about it. The part you said about that it possibly being allowed under the rules if it's in a holster, it's a safety container, or I don't know anything about that. My understanding has always been, if you take your belt off with your gun in the holster, that is the same as pulling your gun out and having it in your hand. So so outside of the safety area, if you were to take just grab your belt off, gun still in the holster, throw it in your trunk, whatever you do, that's a DQ under USPSA rules. And what you're saying about it being allowed in a holster, that doesn't compute with me, because that, from my understanding, that's 100% a DQ. It sucks that happened at the end of the match, and
to an RO who then stayed and RO'd the entire match.
Yeah, and that makes me. So as I said earlier, I'm pretty strict on the rules when I RO. I do think there are certain things where maybe some discretion could be applied, and that's maybe a place where I might consider applying some discretion. But obviously, whoever saw this happen and whoever was ROing did not feel like that was a place where discretion was appropriate, and decided that DQing him was the right call. And so I'm not necessarily going to hold it against somebody I would never hold it against somebody for DQing somebody within the rules, but I wouldn't hold it against somebody for, if it's an RO that's shooting the pre-match and you're also an RO watching this happen, just going over and saying like, hey, you're not supposed to do that, and moving on with your life. But that's just me.
So funny story. Do you want to hear how the RO/CRO assignments worked out?
Let's do it.
that guy that got DQ'd ended up working for the dude that DQ'd him.
Ugh.
Yeah, they were later separated, but
that sounds like a chilly stage there.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine DQing a guy and thinking like, I got him, and then you got to stand next to him for 3 days? That would suck.
I mean, okay. I want to reject the premise that you've thrown out multiple times.
Sorry, this specific guy was I got him. This specific guy I got his name if you want it. I'm not here to out anyone, but this specific guy was heard later talking about how many people he DQ'd. Yeah.
Give me his name privately later. I don't want it out in the world, but yes, I'd like to know.
We're not going to out anyone.
Because my experience, again, so I RO, I've DQ'd people, and my attitude and the attitude that I've seen I've been DQ'd at two USPSA matches. One was a major match, like right when I first started, and my experience of seeing people get DQ'd has always been that it's a somber tone. Like, it sucks. Most people don't want to DQ people. I'm sure it's the same way in 3-gun. Where somebody actually does manage to get DQ'd in 3-gun somehow, and
I take offense to that.
Somebody managed to get DQ'd in 3-gun.
Talk about that.
And it's a very like, this sucks, but I have to DQ you. That's always been my experience. So if somebody is acting differently, that's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let me contrast what we just said there about the holster with what is next in the rule book, because I actually read the rule book, so I feel like I need to quote some stuff. So 5212 says competitors carrying their handgun in a holster must have an empty magazine well, and the hammer or striker must be decocked. Anyone found in violation of this rule will be immediately escorted by a range officer to a suitable range or safety area where appropriate corrective action shall be made. So that is hey bro, let's fix this. But taking your empty pistol with the striker down off and putting it in a bag in its holster, never out of its holster, is not. And Cody, I know you're a rules guy because you told me before the podcast here, and that's one of the things that appeals to you about USPSA. But when you look at letter of the law and intent of the law, right? I guess I'm out of order here, but did I really hurt anyone? Was I able to hurt anyone? Was anyone going to be hurt by this act?
So I do think the I know that this isn't the point of what you were saying, but you said it, so now we got to address it. I do think the idea that, well, nobody got hurt, so it's not a problem. I don't agree with that at all. With any kind of firearm safety rules, like
I agree with you in principle for sure.
So
but nothing could have come from that specific situation, right?
But there's got to be a line somewhere, because I shoot at a membership outdoor range with a bunch of pistol bays, just like every other, where USPSA matches are held. Just any range you've been to looks just like that, where there's bays right next to each other. And when I go during non-match days, which is often, I'm constantly getting muzzled by people on bays next door where they're pulling out an AK-47. And then, I used to go and confront people about it, but every time it was like, oh, it's unloaded. And then they would act like I'm a terrible person for confronting them and being angry about getting muzzled with a firearm. So, and again, it's that same attitude of, well, it's unloaded. Nothing could have happened. You weren't going to get hurt. So there's a line somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So obviously I think we can agree, you're in agreement with me, that muzzling somebody with an AK-47, even if you're just saying, oh, it's unloaded, bro, isn't okay. But where is the line of, okay, yes, I pulled my gun out when I wasn't supposed to, but nobody got hurt, so isn't it okay? Because then at some point, now you're pulling your gun out when you're not supposed to, and now you're loading it, but you didn't point at anybody. Okay, is that okay? And okay, now you're pointing a loaded gun at somebody, but you didn't pull the trigger, so nobody got hurt. And so is that okay? And so you got to have a line somewhere, and USPSA has defined what those lines are, which is what I like about it, is we define, hey, these are what the lines are, operate within these lines, and you'll be fine. And so while some of those lines seem kind of arbitrary and stupid, by having those arbitrary, stupid lines, we have lines drawn where you can't cross that, and they're way before where anything would actually be actually unsafe. So
yeah,
that's what I like about it.
I totally agree with you on that. I don't like going to the range and having guns pointed at me too. And as Ben Berry points out in the chat here, Ben's really adding a whole lot here, by the way. These rules were made to keep everyone safe, even with complete randos showing up at level ones, which makes a lot of sense. What I'm saying is, like, that line is drawn in the wrong place. So I think you are right, but I don't think that line is in the right place. Like, if me carrying a gun around, carrying a pistol around, because we're talking multi-gun here, if me carrying a pistol around in a holster, not on my body, is considered safe, how is it unsafe when I just take that off of my side and now I'm doing the exact same thing?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a rule that I'm not familiar with, and that seems like a problem in either the wording or kind of having conflicting rules.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a case of, like, as a pistol shooter, like, why would you ever do that? That.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when I look at the rule book and I think, like, oh, well, this is written by a bunch of pistol shooters, because they can't even imagine a situation where you would do that.
Yeah, and so I'll come out here and say, I have not been the biggest proponent of PCC and USPSA. I like PCC as a discipline. I think it's a cool thing to be shooting PCCs and shooting them really fast and hosing close targets with them and everything. But I have long been a proponent of separate but equal when it comes to PCC, which is keep them out of my matches and you guys go play over there, because it creates these problems where when everybody's shooting a pistol in the match, we have very clear, bright lines of, if somebody's walking around with their pistol, and let's just say they lock the slide back and they're carrying around Charlie's Angel style like this, pointing up at the sky, everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, what is that guy doing? Like, that is the worst, most egregious DQ I've ever seen. I've never seen somebody do that before. But then you make it a rifle, which is just as dangerous as that same pistol that you were just carrying around in the air. Again, they're both unloaded in this case. So like you're saying, in reality, no, there's no danger here, but it's outside of the rule book. If it's a pistol, but now we're doing that same thing with a rifle, and it's totally fine with a rifle. That's my little tangent for kind of the chief reason. Well, I would say the second most important reason why I don't really love PCC in USPSA matches. The first being that the way it affects stage design. But But that's a conversation for a different day. But anyway,
dude, we should have that
stuff.
conversation. The PCC bashing podcast, because I feel the exact same way as you. Turns out, I knew we could find common ground here, Cody. So PCC, I feel like, has destroyed shotgun for 3-gun. That said, like I've shot the Lucas Oil PCC match, and we were just talking about a mutual friend that has shot the Area 3 PCC match, and he says it's amazing. And so I'm totally with you. Separate but equal. I'm all about PCC in other matches, but not in my match, because it does affect stage design, like it or not.
Yeah, not in my backyard. Go play somewhere else.
Kids, go play with your newfangled gun somewhere else. Yeah. See, I told you we could find common ground. Mike Bauer says, Dave, I don't even know where to start. Exactly. Mike's one of those Western shooters that is under the UML rules and thinks it's okay to shoot PCC in a 3-gun match.
Well, it's a 4-gun match now, right?
Yeah.
Because now you have PCC.
2x4 is what they call it.
Okay. And then some matches have long-range rifles too, where you can use like a bolt-action rifle, so it's 5-gun.
Yeah,
those are not a thing anymore.
Those are super rare. That didn't really work.
Okay.
Because why would you bring like a $13,000 gun setup to take 2 shots on a stage?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, all right, back to the topic. One of the other things, and so I must start this by saying, like, I'm really having hard time defending my brethren on this one, because I think jogging carts and wagons are the silliest things ever. But one of our listeners said that they take issue with Rule 5.2.4, and this is a long one. So, is it okay if I summarize, or do you want to hear like all the language?
You can summarize that.
Okay. So basically, it says that if you're carrying a it's like total legalese. It's crazy, like how excited someone was to write this rule. But if you're carrying long guns in a like a jogger cart or something, it says it must be muzzle up or muzzle down orientation, if not bagged. Now, as a current Texan, someone who's traveled around the country shooting 3-gun matches, I cannot imagine a case where I would love to leave any of my guns unbagged, because dust gets in them and they malfunction and stuff like that. So I think this is silly to have your stuff on jogger cart anyway. But the muzzle of such firearm, if pointed down, apparently pointed up doesn't matter, but if pointed down, must point to a spot within 3 foot of the conveyance. So conveyance is kind of silly. But when I read that, I think of like someone just grabbing a yardstick and rolling around to every one of the carts out there. And so if it's 3 foot 3 inches, you're DQ'd. If it's 3 foot 1 inch, you're DQ'd. If it's 3 foot, well, you could have got DQ'd. If it's 2.9, I'm sorry.
God forbid you're facing up a hill when you do it, and so you got angles in play, and so.
Oh, it specifies that it must be measured on flat ground. So.
Well, perfect. See, they think of everything.
Yeah, exactly. But so I mean that's but that brings up like an interesting point is so is 3 foot 1 inch safer or not as safe as 3 foot? And then if it is 3 foot 1 inch, like you're going to send someone home for that, and that's what I see, Cody, about like the difference when I was talking about like a welcoming environment. Match directors in 3-gun nowadays, they get that you're spending your entertainment dollars, that you've invested $1,200 in travel and lodging before meals to get there. You've invested all of your training ammo and everything, and they're not going to send you home for like 1 small inch. They're going to say, hey, dude, you should probably fix that before we come back tomorrow, or maybe you want to fix that for next time. But putting in that 3 foot number and not saying approximately or giving a tolerance, because again, I used to work in aerospace. Tolerance, tells us like, okay, we have a tolerance of a half a foot. It could be 3 foot 6 inches, 3 foot 7 inches. That's where you get the DQ. But that right there just points to like the hey, we're eyeballing you. We're looking for a way to DQ you.
So I can see why, from your experience, you it that way. What I hear when I hear that is it goes back to what I was saying before of, well, you know the rule before you go, so just figure out how to be in compliance with the rule. But second of all, I have a hard time, and I don't doubt that some people might do it, but I think the majority of ROs would not just go around if it's pointed at the ground and maybe it's between 3 feet and 3 feet 6 inches or whatever. I don't think they're going to go around trying to DQ people for that. To me, the intent of that rule is to not have people going around with, let's just say, like the flat carts people use, just a completely flat cart that's parallel to the ground, and be riding around with their long guns parallel to the ground, where it muzzles everybody and themselves as they're rolling that thing around. Where you can see where that would be a problem. Where you wouldn't, even though, it's unloaded, bro, it's flagged, whatever, it's fine.
And I've been to matches where they'll be laying completely horizontal, and you're like, dude, you're flagging everyone on the range. Like, I get it. I get why it's there. I get that you don't want to have someone flag, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, and so I actually, and so there's a similar rule in USPSA for holster positions. For people, I don't see it as much anymore, but I think it used to be more common where people, and sometimes open shooters will do it, where they'll wear their guns really canted, especially like in front of like an appendix position, and they'll have their gun really canted diagonally.
Yep.
And there's some rule, I think, where your muzzle can't point more than 3 feet away from you. And I do know of one particular open shooter who wears his gun that way, and had it measured by an RO at a match who thought it looked a little weird. And I think he was like 2 feet or something like that. So he was within compliance. Nice. But I wouldn't put it past somebody to actually go out and measure, because I've heard of it happening in pistol matches. But I don't think that's something that's the top priority on anybody's mind of, hey, let's go find some people with their carts that aren't facing the right direction. I think it would be more along the lines of, you see somebody pulling around a cart where the guns are horizontal and muzzling every single person they come in contact with. And then now you have a rule, well, it's definitely not within 3 feet. So we can definitely use this rule. But this is also, honestly,
Cody, you'd be surprised. And the reason I'm bringing these things up is because people told me to. So this was something that was an issue at multi-gun nationals. There were ROs that were measuring the freaking carts.
Yeah, well, then I will say that's a problem. That's not cool.
I know, dude.
It's not cool at all. It's really not. So, and that's people who are going to go around doing things like that. Again, those aren't. I would be hard pressed to find anybody who goes around with that attitude, who is also a competitor who really cares about competing. Maybe some of those guys, some of those guys might be people who do compete, but they don't really practice or anything like that. But somebody like me who spends a ton of time practicing and a lot of time traveling to major matches. If I was ROing at a major match, I have an understanding of who these people are and what they put into the sport, the competitors, and I'm not going to go out of my way to find rules to hem people up on. So I think maybe the issue, in my opinion, is again less the wording of the rule and maybe more the execution.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right.
So because again, I
think we can all agree that having guns pointed at us is a bad thing, even if they're in a car with a flag. So I think we all agree on that. But yeah, like you said, maybe the execution's off.
And that's true of pistol matches too. I mean, there's sometimes where certain things get applied in ways that I don't agree with. And then there's plenty of times where people don't get DQ'd, and I think that person should have gotten DQ'd for that. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how you can train out a culture of if there are people like that. And again, I think that those people are the outliers, but probably the type of people who are ROing at multi-gun nationals are probably going to be a lot of those people who are kind of your career ROs and people who are ROs first and competitors second.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you weed out that culture of people who are ROing because they want the power of it or whatever. or how you could train those people to not behave in that way.
I think you're exactly right, because Mike Bauer, who's a listener of the show, frequent contributor, says, have you discussed the lack of actual shooting experience with the NROI staff at Multi-Gun Nats? So, yeah, I think that's one of those.
Yeah, and that's an issue. Yeah, that's an issue with USPSA too. So I mean, as an example, as a USPSA issue, this wasn't something that I was DQ'd for, but this was something that is memorable to me, to where I'm still thinking about it in this conversation 3.5 years after it happened, where there was a USPSA stage. It was at an area match where you were sitting inside of a helicopter. You shot, I think, 4 targets. You reloaded, shot 4 targets. And I was the first person to shoot this on my squad. And evidently what the RO was going to tell me to do was, after I unload and show clear, he wanted me to set the gun in a box that was in there and then get out of the helicopter. And then he was going to have me unload and show clear again and then holster. Well, he didn't tell me any of that beforehand. So me not liking muzzling my legs, regardless of whether the rules actually do allow you in USPSA to muzzle your legs when in a seated position, or actually in any position, you can muzzle your legs legally. So I could have swept across my legs and then holstered the gun within the rules, but I didn't want to do that because that just feels unsafe to me, and it goes against my own personal ethos of how I handle a gun. So I go to stand up and get out of the helicopter, screaming at me, like angry, like fire in his eyes, yelling at me not to do that. And I think he even put his hand on me at one point, like trying to stop me from getting out. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I have this gun in my hand that's unloaded. I already unloaded it, but I have this gun in my hand and I want to put it in my holster, and I got to stand up before I can do that. So I just kind of ignored what he was saying, and I finished getting out and put it in my holster. And then he just kind of yelled at me for a little bit about how he was going to tell me to put it in the box and all this. And in my mind, I'm like, well, you didn't tell me any of that, and why are you screaming at me? And that person, that is an RO that I've seen in a lot of matches since then. And his behavior on that day does not seem outside of the norm for how he behaves. So I think there is a culture of some people who are like that. And I don't know what you do with those people.
Dude, I feel you, man. Like, we have those ROs in 3-gun too that want to talk to you while you're shooting, want to, help you with your stage plan and stuff. And they're known, but I mean, it's so hard to get good RO staff that we almost have to put up with that stuff, and it's super frustrating, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, from right here, like, imagine that was like a sandwich shop, and the dude was yelling at you for picking your sandwich up instead of like putting it in the box first and then taking your sandwich from there. Would you go back to that sandwich shop?
And not only is it a sandwich shop, it's a sandwich shop where I'm paying $185 to be there. And so, yeah, no, I agree. I think, as an aside, the attitude for what you're saying, well, we need people, and so we have to put up with it, or that might be the case. I don't think that's necessarily what you're saying, but the whole attitude of, well, if you don't like it, then you do it. That any kind of criticism of any kind of match or match official or anything at all, it's always, well, if you don't like it, you do it yourself. And it's like, well, if you're gonna be hostile because you're doing this thing that you volunteered for, maybe just don't do it, and somebody else will do it if you don't do it. And if nobody else just chooses to do it, like if you're maybe a match director and you resent everybody who shoots that match because you have to be match director and nobody else is going to do it, well, then just don't put on the match, and nobody will shoot the match and the world will go on. But if you're going to be resentful and angry about the fact that you have to RO or that you have to put on a match, then just don't do it. Nobody's making you do it.
Yes. Thank you, Cody. Yes. Thank you. I love that, man. I don't understand. Like, dude, there's a lot of things I don't want to do and make me grumpy, and so I don't do them.
Yeah. Like that's why I don't RO at major matches, because I would not have fun. And so I don't do it.
Yeah. So
I just don't.
I traditionally haven't. I So one of my friends, Adam Maxwell, told me several years ago that he chooses to RO at the major match in his home state of Minnesota. And the reason he does it is he looks at it as like the whole nation is coming here to shoot. I want to give them a good experience and be, a good a good host. And it's like we were talking about the nice people from Minnesota, those Western people. But I took that to heart, and I don't RO for various reasons, and one of them is like I don't want someone to have the story of Dave from the Three Gun Show who DQ'd him, So I don't RO, but there are other ways to help out, and I choose to do those things as well. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe someone can check my head, but I feel like I help out a little bit. But this is a topic that we've been talking about on the Three Gun Show for a few weeks now. It's like this being like a wholly, just a small sport, and basically runs on volunteers. Like, you got to give back when you take, and if you can give back at club matches by ROing, by showing up early and setting up and stuff like that, if you can give back by ROing one match a year and shooting 9 instead of shooting 10, that helps out in like massive ways.
Yeah, I agree. So like I said, I did work my local section match that we hold at my home club every year. I worked it my first 2 years as an RO. For that reason, like, it was, my thought process was, I traveled to other major matches, and so, doing one a year is kind of me giving throwing my hat in the ring of, hey, I'm helping too. Or, the Simpsons, I'm helping. So, I would help with one match a year, and then I'll go shoot the other matches. And it's like, hey, if everybody throws in, works one match a year, then we're going to be okay. But unfortunately, in the year since, I haven't had the schedule available to do that without taking a whole bunch of time off work. And then this year, I'm shooting 2 matches the same weekend as that, so I can't work my local section match. But no, I still do the same thing where I RO at my local club, and I set up stages. I show up early, and I'll design a stage, and it's because I want the club to do well. But I'm not, when I do that stuff, I'm not in turn using that as ammunition against the other competitors of saying, well, I can just do it and say no wrong because you didn't help. And so, I'm going to take it out on you because I helped and you didn't. I don't agree with that mindset. And that's something that I see a lot.
It's like having people over to watch Game of Thrones, and then when someone goes for the bean dip shout, I made that, you better enjoy it. Or it's like, this tastes a little weird. Oh yeah, well, where's your bean dip that you brought? Yeah, right.
It's like, I was just saying I thought it tasted a little weird. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the sour cream might be bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know, man. So I'm looking over a lot of the lists that I made, and a lot of these complaints are not something that I feel like I can or am willing to defend. So I think I can kind of leave on one comment. I'm going to close this out with one comment from another person, then I'm going to give you an opportunity to bring up any grievances you have against Three Gunners since we're doing the Festivus thing. And then we'll close her out here. Sound okay?
We have to do the airing of grievances, and then it's feats of strength.
Yeah.
Feats of strength. And then we got to put the Festivus poll up.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that in a little bit here. All right. So this is a comment from someone who had a lot of great comments about problems with USPSA. But one thing they wanted to say was Three Gunners sometimes knock USPSA and create a bad image for themselves. This only furthers the divide. USPSA often ridicules Three Gun as being, quote, outlaw and a joke when they have no understanding of the similarities of rule sets, which, is something that you said a minute ago about there's no way to get DQ in a 3-gun match.
I was kind of kidding.
Yeah. We can get into that if you want to. I'm happy to talk about it. But this is a fault on both parties, but Three Gunners often dismiss attending USPSA because they assume this situation is inevitable. Experiences shared by Three Gunners only seem to further this assumption. And what I wanted to emphasize in that statement is not, an accusation toward USPSA multi-gun specifically, but like we shoot practical shooting. We're pals. Let's get along, And I, for the life of me, I don't understand it. Like if anything, we can all just unite in our dislike of the IDPA, right?
Exactly. Yep.
No, I'm kidding. But like we're all doing the same thing. We have more enemies outside of our ranks than we do inside. So when from being like a young naive three gunner, when I would go to matches and I'd get yelled at by ROs and stuff, I'd be like, dude, we're all here doing the same thing. Like there's people out there making phone calls right now to get us shut down, and you want to yell at me? Like same team. So
yeah,
I want to close out by saying, Cody, we're on the same team, man. And I think that three gun as a whole could use a sanctioning body. I would love to see more multi-gun matches from USPSA. I would love to see more single gun matches and long guns from USPSA, whether that's PCC, actual rifle, caliber rifle, or shotgun. Like all that's cool. More shooting opportunities are awesome, and I love shooting. So that's what I want to see more of.
Yeah. Let me go line by line here. I'm trying to remember what you started with. We were talking about. I don't remember. I had all kinds of responses planned out there. You were talking about how we're all on the same team, and I 100% agree with that. So, I think that any kind of discipline where you are shooting guns and you're trying to do it at a very high level, I look at that as being the same as what I do. I think I joked earlier that I don't do anything else but USPSA. And it's not really a joke. I mean, I've devoted a very large portion of my life, at least for the last 5 years, I've devoted a very large portion of my life to shooting USPSA at the highest level that I can. So I think anybody who wants to do that, whether it be three gun or IDPA or Steel Challenge or Pro-Am or PRS or whatever it is that you like, I think that's great. And I think that, I can look at that person and be like, that person is doing the same thing as me. They're just choosing to do it in a different way. So yes. I like taking stabs at PCC. If you listen to my podcast, I've taken plenty of shots at PCC, especially at revolver. I take a lot of shots at revolver. L10. I've got some bones to pick with certain divisions in USPSA, but overall, those people who shoot those things, we're all on the same team. We're all on the same side, and I think that if you want to shoot guns for fun, then yeah, let's do it. We're on the same team. I certainly don't understand the attitude of. So I will defend overall the ethos of USPSA, which is that we have bright line rules where if you break them, you get DQ'd. I'm totally fine with that on the whole. There are certain rules that you were talking about, like, hey, maybe that needs to be clarified. Maybe we need to move where the line is. But as far as having a line where you can cite it in the rule book, you're being DQ'd for this reason, here it is in the rule book, I think that is a great thing, and that's one of the things that I like about the sport.
I was wrong. I have one more thought while you're coming up with your thought there. So one of the things I enjoy about three gun is if there is like a gray area, most matches nowadays will do like okay, well, tie goes the shooter, and when
I agree with that mindset.
Yeah. So and that's what I like, and that's I feel like from the feedback I've gotten from everyone shooting multi-gun nationals and other USPSA multi-gun matches that that is not the case. And I should have clarified earlier that I shot the 2012, 13, 14 USPSA. The Rescue Multi-Gun Challenge. It was running our USPSA rules. It was fine. And since then, I've shot so many matches that, we're like, first year match is going to be cool, that I just kind of sit back and wait and like let reports come in because I've been burned so many times. And multi-gun nats is kind of one of those things. It was also kind of a financial thing where I couldn't make it. But like looking now, I'm gonna have to let it go another year before I try again, because like I'm almost 40 years old and I have no desire to spend a lot of money to be treated like poop. And
Yeah.
I think we also agree on that.
Yeah, I agree. I do the same thing as far as vetting matches, where I will often let them go a year before I shoot them. Even in USPSA, I think you're generally safer in USPSA just because it's going to be under a unified rule set. Where if it's Joe Bob's 3-gun match and he's making up the rule book as he goes, I would see like, maybe we'll wait this year, see how this year goes, and then I'll go to Joe Bob's 3-gun next year.
The rules are never a problem let me rephrase that. The rules are infrequently a problem, and all matches that I've been to have a published rule set beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's not even necessarily that. It's like stage quality and how the staff was. That's like how I go mostly, And I don't find a lot of weird gotcha DQ rules in 3-gun matches or in outlaw 3-gun matches that a lot of people seem to think there are. So I think that may be something that they fixed over the years.
So for my concern for like an outlaw 3-gun match, if that were what I were into, is not the DQ stuff, but more the competitive equity and competitive advantage type stuff where, okay, what gun is legal in what division? What are we going to be allowed to get away with? Is somebody going to do something? I would actually be more concerned about the opposite of somebody can do something blatantly unsafe and they're not going to get DQ'd for it. But that may also be. I've heard stories of things that 3-gun matches of people not getting DQ'd for, and that's part of what scares me away. Is certain things that I have heard of people not getting DQ'd for that are a problem to me.
Yeah. Well, I will say the vast majority of matches I've been to have been totally legit, totally fine, and unsafe acts are do result in DQs. I have seen a couple things that make even me cringe. There are a couple matches I won't go to because of their safety record, and I feel like we're just waiting. Like, hey, is this the year someone gets killed? So So yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you there, but I urge you as a 3-gun competitor not to paint all matches with that stroke. And if you have any questions about anything, hit me up, man. I know a lot of them, so I'm happy to opine.
All right. I'm not a 3-gun competitor anymore though, so I'm not gonna. So
how about for the audience then?
Okay, got it. Yeah. I think I had something else to say, but that's fine. If I can't remember it, clearly wasn't that important. So.
All right. Well, shoot me a text later.
All right.
All right. Well, Cody,
are we winding down?
I think we are winding down. Man, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want the 3-gun show audience or the people listening in with us right now to know?
No, I guess the reason why I wanted to come on here and have this conversation as a kind of uninitiated person is I approach this again from the aspect of being a competitor, and while I support the USPSA rules being strict and being enforced more or less the letter of the rule, I also don't agree with doing so in a way that's cruel and you're doing it like it's fun to kick people out of matches. I don't think that's okay. And I can definitely see where the issues arise that the rules are being written in a way that doesn't make any sense for 3-gun. And so that's probably something that needs to be fixed. But man, I don't know. I wish I had the answers to all the world's problems. But unfortunately I do not.
Well, that's all right, man. Well, I enjoy your perspective as a competitor and as a fellow podcast host, someone who has like their fingers on the pulse of USPSA, and so I enjoy speaking about it as to competitors. If I wanted to hear the BS that Mike Foley would have to say about it, I'd ask him, and then I'd be in the same position. So You're a rational, reasonable dude. So and I've heard you on the podcast before, so it's good to hear your perspective and be able to talk to you about it. So thank you for being here, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it. I wanted so badly to be on somebody else's podcast that I started my own podcast. So this is a dream come true for me. So I'm gonna stop doing the podcast now. I think I'm done doing my own podcast, and I'm just gonna call it a day now.
You heard it here first. All right, so we should reschedule this podcast then for next year after Multi-Gun Nationals, and we have a whole new list of complaints. So
sounds like fun.
All right. Well, Cody, thank you for being on the show, man. I really appreciate your opinion. Hang in here with me while we say goodbye to the Three Gun Show audience. The chat's not over, so if you have anything more to say, throw it in one of the Facebook comments here on YouTube. Hit us up on Instagram. Cody, Shoot Fast Podcast. Check him out, and we'll see you on the range.
All right, sounds good.